now that part of the show that is called Barrage the Family. I've got 5 questioners sitting here in front of me, and the great part of this is, not only is it live, but I haven't got a... All I know is their names. I've no idea what Andrea is about to ask me. Good evening.
Barnsley has been Labour for decades. Do you think at the next general election the red wall may turn turquoise, as the Conservatives don't have a chance in this area and Labour have some questionable policies and they may be put off by them?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, Barnsley was... I spent much time in South Yorkshire over the years campaigning, first for UKIP, secondly for the Brexit Party. We always got big votes here. European elections, we always came top here. 2014, 2019, general elections under first past the post, people tend to go back, you know, not all of them, but many of them go back to where their families have been for a long time. I think the truth of it is, a lot of those red wall voters actually weren't really Conservative voters. You know, they were, if you like, UKIP was the gateway drug. You know, they came from Labour to UKIP and onto the Conservatives. I think the Conservatives, and I think Miriam was quite frank earlier, unless something dramatic happens, they're going to struggle to hold on to those. I don't know, Andrew, exactly what's going to happen, but I think the levels of disenchantment with both parties are higher now than I've ever seen in my lifetime. We tend to vote for one because we dislike them a bit less than the other. So at some point, I'm hoping we get a really radical shake-up of British politics. I really do.
Needs it. Yeah, I think so.
It needs it. Thank you. OK, Jane.
Hi, Nigel.
Good evening.
Hello. My question is, according to popular, respected opinion, all of our inflation and fiscal problems stem from the price of electricity in the United Kingdom. Will those in power of all colours ever admit that net zero is just not workable?
Well, Jane, I think the real answer to your question is we should swap seats, probably, and you should be here, because you're absolutely right. They've never admitted that they've lumped all this money on our electricity bills. For the last 2 decades, they've basically taken money from the poor and given it to rich foreign companies to build wind farms. I mean, that has been going on for a couple of decades. We all want to live in a better, cleaner environment. We all want our kids and grandkids to inherit, you know, a world. But the fact is that between Indonesia, China, countries like this, India, I mean, they're burning... I mean, here we are in an old coal mining town. They're going to burn 8 billion tonnes of coal in the world this year. And what we're doing is telling you you're going to have a heat pump on your house, an electric car, and if you're rich, it's great, but if you're not, it's wholly unaffordable. But to people in Westminster, this goal of net zero, it's akin to a religion. They believe in it like a religion. They will never listen to any other debate or argument. And one of the reasons, Jane, our inflation figures are so high is our fuel duties, our green taxes are higher than everywhere else. And what do you have to do to move food and everything else around the country? You know, you have to drive it. Yeah. So, look, I'm very clearly in the camp that net zero is completely unachievable on its current course. But if we really want to go for electricity, and you mentioned that, if we really want to go for that, and we really want to cut carbon output, we have to go for small nuclear modular reactors. That is the way forward in the 21st century. What do you think?
It's almost as if net zero is like the new church, and we're all going to have to sort of pray at the altar. Yeah. But even if it was a temporary measure to get the country out of the financial dire straits that we're in, I think we should start firing up our coal-fired power stations and at least get us back to where we were before.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That'll be music to the ears of one of Barnsley's most famous residents, someone that Liam Halligan met in this very room a few years ago, because, of course, Arthur Scargill does come from Barnsley. Now, Alison, what have you got for me?
Hello, Nigel. It's lovely to see you here
Good
again.
to see you.
My question is it right that we are all supposed to just sit back and let this government allow our national heritage and history to be destroyed by allowing migrants to be placed in RAF Scampton, home to the Dambusters, and the grave of Guy Gibson's dog, whose name, obviously, I'm not allowed to say?
I did a live show from Scampton.
I saw it.
Yeah, I did a live show from Scampton from the Dam Busters Arms, which is a very good pub. That's just by the by, but it is. I think you're right. I think that is wanton cultural destruction of a very important site. I even hear that most of the artefacts from 617 Squadron and personal artefacts from Guy Gibson have now been completely removed from the buildings, taken to the RAF Museum in Hendon. They've gone to a good home, but that's not really the point. But I think, Alison, it's actually a bit worse than that. I think what's happening in our schools and through much of our media is an attempt to literally denigrate everything this country has ever done and ever stood for centuries. I mean, take the history of slavery. You would think, to listen to commentators, we were the only country in the world in history that had perpetrated slavery. Well, actually, we were one of many European countries that were doing it. And who was selling us the slaves? Well, actually, African slave masters. And we then used the Royal Navy for decades at a loss of over 2,000 lives to stamp out the trade. Kids in school are not being taught any objective view of our history. And I think what's interesting, I sense a rebellion of this. Now, if you say to people in this room or elsewhere, are you ashamed of your family's history? People say, no, actually, do you know what? You know, my gran in the war worked in a factory building Lancasters. We're not ashamed of our history. We know it's different to today, but actually, compared to many other countries, particularly European ones, I think our history is pretty blooming good. And I think we've got to stop this absolute poisoning of the minds of young people about who we are as a country. I really do.
Like to add, we're also robbing our children of being able to see our country's heritage and experience it by going to these places, and to talk about desecrating the grave of Guy Gibson's dog.
The whole thing.
It is absolutely scandalous.
Is disgusting.
Why don't we just sit back and say to the whole world, everybody come in, do whatever you want, we'll just let you do it.
Well, you know, I think the fact that people have come here illegally, have been placed there, I think that makes people very, very angry. We've got... Time is running short. I've got Shirley up next.
Hi.
Hello.
My question is sort of connected to the end of the conversation you had with Liam.
Yep.
It is, do you think politicians that make manifesto pledges in order to win an election should be held to account if they fail to deliver?
Well, I mean, if that was the case, and if there was some severe penalty, I mean, I think everybody would be in trouble. I mean, look, you know, of course it's true that circumstances change. You know, things happen, wars happen, you know, economic shocks happen, weather events happen. So sometimes not keeping to a manifesto pledge is difficult. But it's when we feel, Alison, that manifesto pledges have been made to us because they think that's what we want to hear and they never actually have any intention of carrying it out, then I think it's very, very different. And one of the places where the Conservative Party are in such big trouble is 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019. They keep telling us net migration will be down to tens of thousands a year, or they'll reduce it, and it's now running at nearly 750,000 a year. And they never intended to keep that. Boris Johnson never intended to cut immigration, and that, I think, is what makes us very angry. Having said that, I suspect Labour will be even worse. We heard David Lammy yesterday suggesting that, you know, maybe free movement of people should come back. So look, you know, I think what you're expressing there is the disenchantment that we all feel.
Absolutely. And I think we voted for Brexit and got net zero, which we didn't vote for.
No, net zero, clearly not popular in Barnsley. Thank you. Right, let's have a go. Carl, please.
I love the socks, by the way.
Good, I'm pleased.
If you're stranded on a desert island, which of these people would you most want to spend the time with? Ginge and Winge, Harry and Meghan, Sleepy Joe, Joe Biden, Scheming Sturgeon, Nicola Sturgeon.
No.
Or Jean-Claude Juncker.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. The others are all beyond the pale. Sturgeon's one of the most unpleasant human beings I've ever met in my life. Ginge and Whinge I'd find totally unbearable. Jean-Claude Juncker and I had very, very different opinions. But you know what? I actually had a very good laugh and a joke with him. And provided we had a pipeline in from one of the Bordeaux vineyards, I think we get on well, and he would cheer me up no end because he'd make me think I haven't got a drink problem at all.